Welcome to SULFUR Salon, where we explore groundbreaking literary scholarship. Today, we delve into Rose Boulos' remarkable work.
Welcome back, everyone. We're diving deep today. Desire, death, and all those unattainable things in literature, of course. Specifically, the works of Antoinette Peské.
Ah, Peské.
Ring a bell.
Well, she's not exactly a household name, but...
Big names loved her.
Oh, yeah, Cocteau, Apollinaire. They were all fans.
And we've got two of her novels to explore.
Let's hear them.
Cachiche too.
Which means?
What are you seeking? And then there's La Boîte à Os.
The Bone Box. Sounds a bit ominous.
It is, and we're going to compare these with Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights.
Classic. A good one for comparison, for sure. Lots of dark romanticism there.
Oh yeah, and a good dose of psychoanalytic theory too. This is going to be a good one.
What's so interesting about Peské is that she's not very well known, despite all that praise.
Exactly. It's like finding a hidden gem,
Yeah.
a slightly disturbing, unsettling gem.
Right. And the sources we're looking at today suggest that Bronte was a huge influence.
Yeah, both authors use this really dark, gothic atmosphere, to really get inside their characters' heads.
Yeah, you see it in their settings right off the bat. Wuthering Heights has those bleak moors.
So desolate.
And then in Peské's novels, you get these isolated houses, shrouded in fog, rain.
It's like the landscape is reflecting what's going on inside the characters.
Totally. A perfect example, and I know you know this one.
Oh, I do. Hit me.
Catherine, searching for Heathcliff in Wuthering Heights. There's that raging storm, right?
Oh, yeah. Intense.
Well, that storm becomes like a physical representation of her inner turmoil.
So true. You see that same thing in Cachiche too.
Yeah.
The house is surrounded by this oppressive atmosphere.
It mirrors,
Jean's feelings.
Exactly. She feels trapped by her desires. They both use this technique,
That Palmatic fallacy.
Yeah, where the setting reflects the character's state of mind. Super powerful. Creates that sense of unease,
And claustrophobia, like you're trapped right there with them.
Exactly. So simple, but so effective.
So we're already getting a bit dark and stormy here.
We are. But let's go even deeper.
Oh, I like where this is going.
The sources we're using really dig into some psychoanalytic theories.
I'll just think about that.
Specifically, Lacan's concept of the objet petit,
The J.O.
Yeah. Have you ever just really, really longed for something? Something you know you can't have?
Oh, all the time.
That's the objet A. It's this unattainable object of desire, the thing you chase but can never grasp.
That's deep.
And Peské's characters, prime examples, they're driven to these extremes by chasing the impossible, sometimes to the point of madness.
So it's like this emptiness, a void that can never be filled, and that's what drives their actions.
Precisely. Think about John in La Boîte à Os. He's obsessed with Margaret's eyes. But it's not just simple admiration. They represent everything he desires. His objet A.
And then there's that part where he catches a brilliant gleam in her eyes. But then it's gone.
Vanishes, and he's left with this intense sense of loss and this urge to possess her, even in death.
That's messed up.
Peské doesn't shy away from the darkness. She shows how desire can twist even the most basic human instincts.
Makes me think of Catherine in Wuthering Heights.
Yeah.
She wastes away, dies, because she can't be with Heathcliff.
And in a way, her death is like a twisted fulfillment.
So messed up, but yeah.
It highlights how closely desire and death are connected in both Bronte and Peské's work.
And that reminds me, we should probably talk about Eros and Thanatos.
Ah, yes, Freud. The life and death drives, often seen as opposites.
But our expert explains they're actually intertwined.
They are. Not opposites, but two sides of the same coin. And Peské's novels show this duality. Characters chasing desire, and it leads to self-destruction. It's like an unconscious desire to return to a primal state.
It's like they're drawn to their own demise, moths to a flame.
A very fitting analogy.
But there's another concept we should touch on, that repetition compulsion thing. I've definitely felt stuck in my own life, repeating the same patterns.
It happens on an unconscious level, right? Repeating traumas, patterns, even the bad ones, trying to gain control.
And Peské uses this in her storytelling.
Beautifully. It's like history repeating itself, but within the world of the novel.
So give me an example.
Okay, in Cachiche 2, Jean's love affair, it mirrors Mrs. O'Perk's.
And Mrs. O'Perk's ended badly.
Doomed. Both of them. It suggests this unconscious repetition of a destructive pattern.
Adds a whole new layer of complexity to these characters.
Absolutely. And to add to that feeling of being trapped, Peské uses eyes and looking.
Eyes. like literally eyes.
Yes. She creates this tension between wanting to see, to know, and the fact that you can never truly possess what you desire.
Okay, I'm thinking of that scene in La Boîte en Eau, John.
Defiles Margaret's face.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Horrifying.
Yeah.
But it also says something about his frustration. He wants something he can't have.
Exactly. Connect it back to the objet go. John's fixated on Margaret's eyes. They represent what he wants but can never have. And his attempt to possess her through looking leads to violence.
It's like he's trying to close the gap between wanting and having, but in the worst possible way.
And this brings us to the theme of perversion. Peské pushes boundaries, explores these taboo desires.
We should be clear here. We're not endorsing any of this. We're analyzing it.
Right. Within the context of the source material, the sources suggest that perversion for Peské is a way of trying to overcome the limitations of desire.
To break free from the unattainable.
Exactly. And John's necrophilia. That's the most extreme example. It's his way of possessing Margaret completely, even in death.
It's powerful. Shows just how far these characters will go.
But amidst all the darkness, there's also a strange idealism. You know, the idea of courtly love.
Knights in chivalry. Unattainable love.
It appears in Peské's work, but it's twisted.
So how does that play out with John?
Well, after he commits a necrophilia, he talks about wanting to transcend earthly limitations. It's like a knight on a perverse quest, searching for a love that defies death.
Peské's not holding back. She's diving headfirst into the complexities of desire.
And drawing inspiration from so many places, from literature, from psychoanalysis.
It's a potent mix.
And it's what makes her work so compelling. She forces us to confront these uncomfortable truths about ourselves, to look into the shadows of human experience.
And we've only just started. From bleak landscapes to objet A to repetition compulsion.
We've covered a lot, but we've only scratched the surface.
The real question is, what does it all mean? What's Peské trying to tell us about desire? How it shapes our lives, our relationships, even our understanding of death?
That's a question we'll tackle in the next part of our deep dive. Stay tuned, folks. Things are about to get even more interesting.
You know that title, Que cherches tu?
What are you seeking?
It's like Peské is asking us that directly, like challenging us.
Yeah, to really look at our own desires and motivations.
It's a bit unsettling, right?
It is. It's like she's holding up this mirror.
To humanity.
Yeah, like forcing us to look at this dark side.
Our desires can be kind of obsessive.
Totally. And the sources we're looking at, they suggest her work is this commentary on humanity itself. Makes you wonder what we should take away from all this. All these stories about longing and despair and...
It's not just romantic love, right?
No, not at all. It's about all kinds of desire.
Everything we crave, all those voids we're trying to fill, which brings us back to that idea of lack.
Right. Lacan argued that desire comes from this sense of absence.
Something that's missing.
We're always trying to fill that void, but it's impossible.
Because of the objet A.
Exactly. That ultimate object of desire, always just out of reach.
It's like the grass is always greener.
Uh-huh. Yep. We always want what we can't have. What we do have is never enough.
So true. And that yearning, it can lead us down some dark paths.
Like we see with Peské's characters.
Consumed by their desires, blinded by this need to fill that void.
And they lose sight of themselves, of the consequences.
But isn't that part of being human? To struggle with those desires. I mean, we've all felt that longing, right?
Oh, absolutely. And there's something so intense, so alluring about it.
The idea of sacrificing everything for passion, for love.
But the sources we're looking at, they do caution us about romanticizing that. Romanticizing self-destruction.
Desire is powerful.
But we need to balance it out with reason, with self-awareness.
Ooh, I like this analogy. It's like fire.
Go on.
It can give you warmth, light. But if you don't control it...
It burns everything down. I love that.
So what's the takeaway? With Peské?
I think she's saying we need to be mindful of our desires, you know.
Understand where they come from.
Yeah.
Where they might lead us.
And find a way to navigate them without being consumed by them.
Not easy in today's world. Everything tells us to want more, more, more.
You're right. It's like we're bombarded with these images, these messages.
Telling us we need to be prettier, richer, happier. Always chasing these impossible ideals.
You've hit on something there. Because the sources, they suggest Peské's work is a critique of all that. Of those societal norms and expectations.
Her characters, they're trapped.
By their social class, their gender roles.
Even their own beliefs about what they should want.
Right. think about Jean in Cherche too.
Oh yeah, she's constantly battling those expectations.
Torn between what she wants and what she thinks she's allowed to have.
That's so relatable. So many of us struggle with that.
Trying to balance what we want with what everyone else expects of us.
And sometimes what we want, it's taboo, unconventional.
Even perverse.
And that's where Peské gets really interesting. She goes there. She explores those taboo desires.
Those acts that cross the line.
And again, we need to be clear. We're not saying any of this is okay.
Not at all. We're looking at it in the context of her work. The sources suggest that perversion, for Peské, it's a way to try to overcome the limits of desire.
Okay, so push those boundaries.
Right. And it forces us to confront the fact that those desires exist and to ask ourselves, what happens when we cross those boundaries?
What happens when we give in to those darker impulses?
It's about understanding what drives people to those extremes.
So are we all just like doomed to be tortured by these unattainable desires? Or is there hope? Can we actually find fulfillment?
That's the big question, isn't it? And Peské, she doesn't give us easy answers.
So no self-help guide to happiness.
Not quite. But there's wisdom in that. She wants us to confront these truths about ourselves, about desire, to become more aware, to question our motivations, to think about the consequences of our actions.
That's a tall order.
It is.
It's like she's saying, look, life is messy.
We're all flawed.
We crave things we can't have.
But that's part of what makes us human.
Keep seeking, keep questioning.
Keep striving to become more. Something like that.
Beautiful. I like that.
It's what makes Peské's work so powerful. She's not afraid to look at the darkness, to confront it. And by doing that, she helps us understand what it means to be human.
So we've gone from bleak landscapes, repetition compulsion,
Transgression.
and we've connected it all back to this bigger question of desire.
And we're just getting started. There's so much more to explore.
So much to unpack. But maybe we should take a moment. Let it all sink in.
I agree. Sometimes we need to step back, give those ideas time to simmer.
Everyone listening, take a moment. What resonates with you? What questions are popping up about your own experiences, about desire, about longing? We'll be right back to tackle the big one. What does all of this tell us about searching for meaning, for fulfillment, in a world where real satisfaction always seems just out of reach?
So we've really gone deep with Peské, all this obsession, transgression, the dark side of desire. But is there any hope in her work? Like, can we actually find fulfillment, or are we chasing after something that doesn't even exist?
It's the question, right? That lingers. And I think Peské, she wants us to grapple with it. Think about that repetition compulsion idea.
Oh, right. Getting stuck in those patterns.
But it's not just about being trapped. It's also about the possibility of change.
Wait, so each time we repeat something, it's like a chance to break free. Exactly. Each echo of the past, it's an opportunity to choose differently. Peské's not about easy answers or happy endings. It's about facing the complexities of desire, understanding where it comes from, and maybe, just maybe, finding a way to move beyond those limits.
It's like she's saying, look, we're all messed up in our own ways. We all want things we can't have.
But that's part of being human.
Keep searching, keep asking those tough questions.
And try to become more than you are now.
That's powerful.
It is. And even in the darkest parts of her stories, there's a hint of something else, something transcendent.
Oh, interesting. Where do you see that?
Well, like in La Boîte aux Os with John, what he does is horrific, no question.
The necrophilia, yeah, definitely disturbing.
But there's this yearning there for a love that goes beyond death.
A desire to break free from those earthly limitations.
Yeah, it's like a twisted idealism, a warped version of something pure.
Like he's reaching for something higher, something beyond the physical world.
But he goes about it in the worst way possible.
Tragic, really.
It is, and that's where I think Peské's work goes beyond just psychoanalysis. It becomes something more philosophical, even spiritual. It's not just about dissecting our desires. It's about this bigger question. What does it mean to be human? What does it mean to search for meaning in a world that often feels meaningless?
Well, yeah, it's heavy.
It is, but it's also so relatable, right? We've all felt that existential angst, that need to find something more.
Totally. And that's why Peské's work is so timeless, Her characters, they're messed up, but they're like mirrors reflecting our own struggle.
Her own hopes, too.
And that image of eyes, that keeps coming up in her novels.
Yes, the gaze. Representing desire, but also the fact that we can never really know another person.
Like truly see them.
It becomes a metaphor for the limits of human perception. We can look so closely, but we can never fully grasp what's inside.
So we're all searching for that impossible connection.
That moment of true understanding.
But maybe Peské is saying it's the searching that matters, even if we never find what we're looking for.
Maybe the journey is more important than the destination. The searching, the yearning, the questions. That's what makes us human, even if it also brings us pain.
This deep dive has been a wild ride. We've gone to some pretty dark places, but we've also seen some beauty along the way.
That's the thing about Peské's work. It challenges us, makes us think, and leaves us with more questions than answers.
And isn't that a good thing? To be left with questions.
Absolutely. Sometimes those questions, they're the most valuable lessons. They force us to think critically, to really examine our beliefs.
To embrace the mystery of it all.
Exactly. So as we wrap up our exploration of Antoinette Peské, remember this. Embrace the questions, embrace the journey, and keep searching. Even if you never find exactly what you're looking for, you never know what you might discover along the way.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.